Daily Broadside, day 641. I have a bit of a graphic tale. It's not really totally graphic, but just as an FYI, if you're not into animal graphicness, just don't listen. But I went by a girl's house, a friend of mine who needed to do a project, so she needed to borrow my miter saw. So I stopped by this afternoon, and I give her the saw. I'm like, look, man, just don't cut your finger off. I don't need blood all over my saw and all. And just keep it for the weekend. I'll get it later. And while I was there, this little Shih Tzu dog, I think that's how you pronounce it, rolls up. A little 7-pound dog, and I'm like, well, whose dog is this? She's like, I'm dog sitting. And I'm like, oh, man, that's crazy. These are little weird little dogs. And I never knew that, like, a Shih Tzu and a Pekingese are basically the same thing with different length hair. I could be wrong, but that's kind of my assessment on that, because I don't think I'd ever been near a Shih Tzu. Anyway, but it reminded me of a story. So I got this buddy who I went to college with who lives down near like the Rock Hill, South Carolina area, and he's got a pretty big, he does like pondscapes and water features, and he'll be one of them dudes that we nicknamed him Fuck-a-Koi. And you might be wondering, like, what kind of weird name is that? Is because he says fuck-a-koi. Because he puts in these ponds and these waterfalls on these waterscapes in people's backyards, these people that need this crap in their life, And we were laughing one time at, how silly of a job this was. And I'm like, do you stock these? His response was, fuck-a-koi. And so he apparently doesn't buy the fish. So koi fish, not his ball game. You stock the thing. He'll build it for you, but you stock it. But it reminded me of a funny story he told me back in the day. He said, not long after he got his business started, he basically builds ponds, man, I'm not saying like huge ponds, but like little duck ponds and stuff, people's backyards and all, something that like, quarter acre type size things. And along with all the water features and crap that go up near your house. But he builds this duck pond for this lady. And they lived in a really, really nice, like these are like $1 million homes. The people that can afford a duck pond in their backyard, because why not? And, this is gated community, these huge, expensive homes. And the neighbors of the people that built the duck pond did not care for said duck pond for whatever reason. I don't remember why, but they didn't like the fact that, Canadian geese and all these things were flying in and screwing around with all that stuff. At any rate, the people that didn't like the duck pond had this like little tiny dog, kind of like a Shih Tzu or a Pekingese or something. It was some kind of like poodle doodle, whatever. And its name was like Miss Prissy or something like that. Some silly little dainty name, right? And so they're like, one day Prissy goes missing, and they went on a tear. Like, they're taking out half page ads in the local paper. They're putting out like printed, like they went to like printing places, like printed up these posters, like professional, like whatever. If you see Miss Prissy, call us immediately. And there was a $5,000 bounty, a reward, I should say, on this dog's head to return it safely to these families, right? And I'm like, man, I don't know what you paid for this dog, but $5,000 is a little excessive for an animal. Like, just go move on. Assume the dog has moved on to another realm of the universe and get you a new dog. But at any rate, the whole part of town they lived in was just plastered with all these, we got to find Miss Prissy, whatever. Well, one day, the people with the duck pond, they call up my buddy, and they're like, hey, we need you to come to our house, like, stat. And he's like, what's going on? He's like, we got a problem. We need you to help us. And so he's like, all right, I'll come by and give me like an hour. So he shows up, and he goes back, and they lead him back to the duck pond that he built. And they're like, Miss Prissy is in the duck pond. Well, somehow Miss Prissy had escaped from the house next door, wandered over to their property and gotten in the duck pond, presumably had drowned, and it was, washed up on the duck shore. And so he's like, and so the people are like, they already don't like our duck pond, and now our duck pond has killed Miss Prissy. We can't have this. We've got to solve this problem, and so we need you to make this disappear. So ultimately, like, right at that instant, my buddy becomes Harvey Keitel in Pulp Fiction. He's the wolf, right? He might as well have rolled up in an Acura NSX, not a pickup truck. And so he's like not even phased. He's like, I'll take care of it. So he puts Miss Priss into like a covert bag. He's looking over and sticks it in the back of his truck, right? So he goes down the road just a ways, and there's like a bigger pond that's like kind of communal in the neighborhood. And then there's like tributary streams and whatnot that they manage. Like they also have, part of his business is the landscaping part, where they go and mow and weed eat all these ponds and everything. And they've got like a contract with the neighborhood and everything. So he went over there and he threw the dog over the corpse, which it looked like the dog had been gone for like 3 or 4 days, right? So it was in several stages of decomposition. And so he takes the dog and just unfurls it out of the bag that he had it in and rolls it over to the like the bank of one of the communal streams and tributaries, right? So knowing that they were going to be maintaining it like in the next 24 hours, and then they could conveniently find it then, right? So fast forward to the next day, he calls his one of his supervisors, and he's like, look, there's a dog over there. I need you to find it. So he so don't start mowing till like I get there. So he shows up the next morning while they're mowing and everything. And before he can get out and, start pointing out where the dog might be, they've got these Ventrac, which if you don't know what a Ventrac is, I think I'm pronouncing that right. They're like these $25,000, $30,000 mowers that are good on like side hills. They got like 4 wheels, and they're crazy expensive, but they're amazing machines. They can do all kinds of stuff. And that's what they mow these really steep banks with, so they don't just slide into the water. And so this dude's mowing, right? And he's discharging his grass away from the water, so he doesn't shoot all the cut grass into the water and make it look shitty. And as he's rolling through there, he doesn't see the grass is kind of high, and it picks up Miss Prissy and whoosh, flips her through the damn mower. Just eviscerates her, right, into several tinier pieces than what she was as a whole. And so my buddy Fuckacoy is all like, oh God, so he now has to gather up pieces of Miss Prissy, and it's still got like the pink collar on its neck with like the name tag and like, so it's the dog, right? The fur's the same color, although now it's mixed up with all kinds of bloat and decomp and blood and whatnot. And so he puts it in another bag and takes it up, and so he goes up to people's house. It's knocks on the door. They come to the door and they're like, hey, found your dog, Miss Prissy. And they're like, oh, Lordy B, that's so great and whatnot. And so they walk out to his truck, and he's like, yeah, it's not so great. She's not still with us and all this. And so they go out to the truck and they look at her completely eviscerated, destroyed, Ventrac, corpse that's just been mangled by 3 or 4 different mowing blades at many, many high RPMs. And they're like, I knew it. Well, I'm always very, and this looks like a little toy dog, like 6'5", 6'7" pound dog. And they're like, I'm very conscientious about when I let this dog out, because there's a hawk that lives around here, and that hawk will swoop down and grab that dog. So I always have to be careful. And this one time when Miss Prissy went missing, I let her out, and then I never saw her again. And that damn hawk went and got it, and they must have flown really high and dropped it into the lake. And that's how it drowned and all this. And my buddy's, Fuckacoy is kind of like, yep, that sounds like that is something that hawks do. And that's what I was reminded of today when my friend needed to borrow my miter saw. Giddy.